Dave.
Welcome to the Everyday Epigenetics, raw, real, relatable podcast. We're your hosts, Susan Robbins, certified epigenetic human performance coach,
And Kate King, licensed psychotherapist, board-certified art therapist, and award-winning author. Together, we bring two perspectives, two styles, and one shared passion for epigenetics.
On this podcast, we delve into topics such as environment, nutrition, fitness, mindset, social dynamics, and trauma as they pertain to epigenetic expression in a way that's relatable to everyone.
We recognize that everyone's needs are unique. There are no one-size-fits-all solutions for your mind, body, and heart. The true magic lies within you.
So if you're ready to create a radiant life through epigenetics and reclaim your authentic self, then buckle up. Here we go. Welcome to the Everyday Epigenetics, raw, real, relatable podcast. I am Susan Robbins, and I'm here with.
Kate King.
So Kate has been telling me she wants to talk about something called parts work, parts psychology, also known as, and I'm going to say in quotes, IFS. So IF as in Frank, S as in Sam. And I was like, okay, I have no clue what this is. And just a couple of weeks ago, when we had recorded a podcast on my PH360 work and the health types, because she wanted to learn more about that, I said, yeah, let's totally do this because I get to learn about something that I truly have no idea about. Because I had to ask her, can you please text that to me what it is so I even say it properly? So, Kate, my dear friend and co-host, tell me what the heck is parts work and parts psychology?
Thank you, Susan. I'm excited to talk to you about this because I think you're going to love it. And when I make posts about this, particularly on YouTube, it's always the IFS posts that go viral. People are hungry for this work. And IFS is an abbreviation for internal family systems. It's a therapeutic modality that was created by Richard Schwartz. And it is non-pathologizing, which means it's not focused on diagnosing you or talking about what's wrong with you. It talks about the natural multiplicity of all of our minds, how we have different parts of ourselves. And we often talk about this even in everyday language unconsciously where, someone says, hey, do you want to come to the party? And you're like, part of me wants to go because I miss seeing my friends. And yeah, I'd love to go be social. But another part of me really doesn't want to go because I'm worn out and burnt out. And so even then you're talking about this multiplicity that we can have multiple aspects of ourselves that are present in any given moment. And parts work or parts psychology really talks about how different aspects of our psyche fractal off. A lot of the time, it's when we're really young. These are oftentimes inner children, wounded inner child parts that are adapting to life. And so as something goes sideways in life, in your child experience, in your family system, in your current experience, a part of you adapts to meet whatever that challenge is. And then that part exists in your psyche and can hold the responsibility of reacting that way from there forward if you choose to. So, for example, if there's a child in a family where the child feels unimportant or neglected, and they realize, oh, I get attention and love when I'm hurt or wounded. So maybe a part gets developed where it activates this sort of wounded victim. This kid might fake injuries, or this kid might really soak in a lot of love when they're feeling under the weather. And so this part will perpetuate that during times of life when they're feeling sidelined and not really focused on enough. And so that part can continue forward not only in childhood, but in adulthood. You might have someone who goes into this victim place when they're not feeling well and they want to be taken care of and they want to gain intimacy through the avenue of their illness or injury. And that would be a young part. So the parts, I think of it like a solar system, where there's also a true self. And true self is not a part. It's like the sun in the center of the solar system. It's who you really are. It's your basic essence of you. And then the parts that get created through life are like little planets that orbit around, and sometimes they can orbit right in front of the sun and they can block out that light. And so all is the part. And in that way, we get flooded and we have these dominant parts that show up depending on our individual life experiences that can really flood us. So maybe someone has a perfectionist part and it shows up when they're feeling insecure or when things feel a little out of control, and it orbits in front of their true self and it takes the stage. So you really can't see that person's true self in the moment because all you can see is the perfectionist part. And the perfectionist part is taking responsibility for the entire system in that moment because it feels like it needs to. Because maybe one day long ago, it really did need to. Maybe it even saved that person's life a long time ago. And so it feels like its job and its responsibility is incredibly important to keep the system safe. And it doesn't realize it's a part. It doesn't realize that it was born from dysfunction or from distortion. All parts are distorted because they hold just this singular kind of dynamic of why they feel they need to show up into the system. And yes, go ahead.
Is some of this what develops our attachment styles too?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because that was the first thing I thought of when you were talking about the neglected, say the neglected child, how they're going to feel. Are they going to be more avoidant? Are they going to be more anxious because of that? So that was the first thing that came in my head. So that's what I'm familiar with is attachment theories. And it sounds like that can be how they're developed.
Yes. So, very good question. They certainly do overlap. So, if someone develops an anxious avoidant attachment type, they likely have developed a part that knows how to respond to avoid how uncomfortable it feels to have that amount of anxiety or that disconnection in relationship that can make you feel kind of like you don't know if relationships are safe. And so, sometimes people will develop a part in that situation where they become an overfunctioner in a relationship and that part overfunctions so that it can secure a relationship. Or maybe there's a shutdown part where the anxiety becomes so huge and flooding that the person just isolates and cuts themselves off so they don't have to feel the discomfort of relationships. So yeah, very good question. And there's also different kinds of parts. Essentially, there's two main kinds of parts. There's exile parts and manager parts. And then when it comes to the manager parts, there's managers and firefighters. So those are the two different kinds of managers. But the exile is like the wounded child. That's where the original wound is that created the part. And oftentimes, the part, if a part is in exile, it holds a really fragile energy. It's really delicate. It was hurt really badly. And so sometimes our system will like banish exiles into the basement of our psyche where we don't have to feel that afraid, fragile, scary energy that they hold. And so then a protector part will come in and protect that exile part from flooding the system. So the protector parts, again, are managers and firefighters. So a manager protector part is like really organized, like it manages your life. These are the aspects that kind of keep it all glued together: the overfunctioning, the perfectionism, the people pleasing. These actually look like really admirable qualities most of the time, and they are until they flood your system and take you to a place of imbalance. Whereas the firefighter protector parts, they don't really care about the long term. They're not thinking about the damage control. They just want to put out the fire. They want to stop your discomfort immediately. And so these are maybe like addiction or impulsivity. They're quick
Okay.
things that make you feel better, but sometimes result in long-term damage control that you need to take care of. They're not thinking about tomorrow, whereas the manager parts often are. So both of these types of protector parts function to keep those exiles at bay, because if you were to truly feel the wounded energy of, say, abandonment or rejection or real like fear for your life, then these protector parts worry that your system would get so overstimulated and so flooded that you really wouldn't be able to function. So every single part in the system, even if they seem like they're not helping you out, they're maladaptive, they cause kind of problems, right? Like an aggressive part or avoidant relationship parts. People are like, I hate these parts. They're causing suffering. Actually, these parts love you so much and
They're protecting.
they're doing the only thing they know how to do to keep you safe from something that was really, really threatening once. So it's important to keep in mind that there's this really exquisite intelligence inside of each of these parts, and they all come with good intentions and they're all distorted in their own way. So we want to try to return to true self. And true self is in IFS, there are 8 qualities of true self. Let's see if I can remember them all. I can never remember them all. There's too many. So they're all C words: connection, creativity, compassion, clarity, courage, curiosity. I'm forgetting the other 2. It's like along those lines. So, listeners, if you want to go look up the 8 C's of IFS, you'll find the ones that I forgot. But those are basically your litmus test to know if you're centered in true self. Because if you can witness that there's a part of you that's getting your attention, maybe you feel a little bit uncomfortable and you're wanting to project control. Maybe there's a controlling part that's showing up in a relationship. If you don't just let it flood you and go with the pattern of what it does, but instead you try to witness it from true self, and you can look at that controlling part and say, "Oh, hey, what you doing? What do you have for me? There's some information, there's some reason why you're here." Maybe there's some curiosity, maybe there's some compassion that you can reflect towards that part. Then you can have an understanding and a dialogue for why that part is here, maybe why it was created and why it might be showing up to support you. And then in that moment, you give yourself choice to not necessarily let that part flood you, but take its information and maybe make a change in your life or have a different awareness in the moment that you're in to honor the wisdom of that part.
So I have a couple questions, as usual. Okay, so the first one you just touched on awareness. Really, that so much of this, as with everything we've talked about when it comes to lifestyle or anything, genetics, right? Epigenetics, it's creating awareness around these propensities that we may have. So the more you would delve into this and start understanding you and why you're making decisions the way you're making them, why you're acting the way you're acting, having that awareness is really the key to taking actions that are going to be meaningful in dealing with this. And so am I on the right track there?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. And then in dealing with them, is this something that you typically need help with to process through in recognizing, or is this something you can go to the internet for and look up the 8 C's and try to understand this? Or is it better to get professional help when delving through here, especially if there has been some more significant trauma in
I
someone's
recommend I recommend with IFS because in the beginning, as you're mapping out what this modality is, oh, there's exiles and then there's 2 kinds of protectors, like managers and firefighters, and what's what. People can get really cerebral when they're trying to label all of their parts and create an understanding of this map. And so it can be overwhelming in the beginning until you really start to integrate it and understand it in an embodied way. So I think it's a great idea to work with somebody who's been either trained or certified in internal family systems. And a lot of therapists have because IFS has taken the therapeutic community by storm. You can't even get a training for this very easily, let alone a certification. There's like a lottery. So many people want the certificate. It is such a powerful method that we just can't train people fast enough. So, if you can find somebody who can help guide this, it's helpful. And here's another reason why. There's an aspect of the internal family systems model where it goes into guided visualization. And so, all you would have to do as the client is basically sit there with your eyes closed and let your therapist guide you through an exploration of your parts and help to identify which part is here, where they live in your body. This is a somatically based experience as well as a cognitively one. So you'll be able to sense, like, okay, so I feel tightness in my chest or bubbles in my stomach when I notice this part. This part feels purple. This part feels like an alien. Sometimes they're really scary or they're in the dark. And so you're getting visualizations while you're also getting somatic messages from your body that let you know where inside yourself you're holding the energy of this part. And then the therapist can guide you through meeting that part from true self and accessing self and trying to lean towards the part with the 8 C's, the curiosity, the compassion, the courage, the clarity, and really getting to know, who are you and what's your message and what's your role in my system. And through that process, there's something called unburdening that can happen where these parts have been holding responsibility that so often isn't really appropriate for them to be holding, because they had to carry a heavy weight when you were too young to be able to carry it yourself. And so maybe when you were 3 or 4 years old, there's a part that took on sort of an adult like responsibility of managing your parents' emotions or managing a really unsafe situation in your life. And your parts don't realize that you've grown up. They still think you're 3 or 4 because they're frozen in time when that happened, when they were created. And so, with the guidance of a therapist through guided visualization, you can go to that part and you can ask it, "How old do you think I am now?" And the part will so often be like, 6, 7, 3. And then you say, "No, I'm 40, I'm 50, like, I've come a long way." And so then you get to give that part a corrective experience where not only can you reparent that part from your adult self, but you can also invite it not to carry that heavy burden that it's been carrying for so long, because now you can handle it. Now you can discern healthy relationships or safe environments for yourself. And then you can ask that part, what would it rather be doing in your system? Because we don't want the part to go away. This isn't about eradicating or eliminating anyone. All of these parts are immensely valuable and they have a lot of wisdom and skills, but they just don't need to be in the forefront flooding you in the way they do.
Right.
Like this managing relationship part maybe doesn't need to scan the world with hypervigilance, anxiously seeking healthy relationships, but maybe it could be really beneficial as like a cheerleader for a good relationship, that it can help with the connection and the love. And so maybe that'll feel better. Oftentimes when you ask a part, what do you need? What would you rather be doing? They're like, I need a vacation. I'm exhausted. I need a nap.
When you were talking, I'm going back a bit here. This was one of my other questions earlier. And you talked about the protector parts, the managers and the firefighters, and talking about things like with the firefighters, I want to take care of this now. Hearing, I want to take care of this now, and impulsivity. Do hormones like dopamine, like your neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, do they come into play here? Because we know epigenetically some people may have issues there that predispose them. And then if you have these traumatic experiences, you're really dealing with this. So, do any of those come into play at all with the
Like,
different types of like the two protector types, like who's going to take the reins at that point? Yeah, go ahead.
yes, these protector parts, the exiles, all the parts, they're like intricately woven into the tapestry of your holistic being. So they can pull the strings on your hormones and on your neurotransmitters to help get their job done. So if you have a part that's focused on mobilizing you and in an anxious way, it's going to pull your adrenal response and it's going to help you mobilize and have action and move, even if maybe it's unhealthy and really you should learn how to sit with the discomfort and stay. That part, when it was created, needed to give you an anxious response so that you could stay safe. And it still thinks it does. So it's still going to tap that adrenal response to protect you. Yeah. Same thing, like if you have a part that's avoidant, maybe you're using scrolling, doom scrolling to avoid what it is that feels uncomfortable for you. And in so doing, you're tapping the dopamine lever. And so that part is accessing and using dopamine to help you stay comfortable and to help you perpetuate the avoidance that you needed at one time. And that part doesn't realize that you may not need it anymore. It doesn't realize it might be depleting your dopamine reserves. All it's trying to do is keep you safe the only way it knows how.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So, because I think everybody deals with situations at some point where maybe they are more impulsive, or we have, especially like a diplomat, super perfectionist types, right? And that's all around comfort with serotonin. But aside from that, like I said, we all have these times where something comes up in us where we have to be more protective, or we have these triggers. So, I'm trying to figure out how to pose this question. So bear with me, because I want to pose it in the right way where it makes sense. What are the signs you would look for, or be, no, because we don't want to keep looking for things that are wrong. But when you, and we all know inside something is off, when you take that time to sit with yourself, you'll know when things feel great and in flow, and you just instinctively will feel, I just feel off. There's something that's not right. And you'll see yourself doing behaviors that typically you wouldn't do, right? On a general basis, when you're on a pretty good inflow level. So, who would explore something like this? Like, at what point? What are the signs you would look for? Or not taking away that look for, that's where I was going with that. What are the signs that you would just start recognizing to say that I'm just, I'm off. I don't like how I'm reacting to certain situations or certain people. What's happening here? Is there something am I at a point in my life? Is there a particular stressor that's bringing this out in me? But I know I'm just not, quote, I'm not me right now.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
can you talk a bit to that? I hope that makes sense. I was trying to figure out what's the best way to put this, because I don't want
Yeah.
people thinking, "Oh, I got to look for everything to make me feel like something's wrong with me." That's not how we work. It's not how I work. How Kate works. It's not constantly looking for things that are wrong because you find more that's wrong. But it's when you're looking for things that are right all the time and something feels off.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you're also asking, how do we recognize when we are being flooded by a part versus shining
Yes,
light of?
exactly.
And so here's the deal.
You say that so much better than like, I know what I wanna say, and you say it. So if I could just say, like, what I say off the cuff, and then you just put it into the right words, it's perfect duo.
Parts work is my wheelhouse, so I have good language around this. So here's the deal with parts. We all have them. There is no one who doesn't have them. It's normal and natural to have many, 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 many parts. I have done a creative kind of directive to work with parts, which I'm happy to show you if you think that would be valuable to share today. And I have a stack. I've got probably 50 to 60 parts of my own that I have explored through the
Wow.
creative process. And so it's really just knowing yourself on really deep and really intricate, nuanced levels. And if you come into contact with a part of you that maybe you didn't realize was there before, then it's, oh, a new friend. Like, how can I get to know this part? Or you might realize that you're developing a part now because you're in a situation in your adult life, even that demands that you separate from true self and go into this protective mode. Or maybe there was a wound that happened or a trauma in adult life that created a part. And so you can get to know these parts forever. I don't even know if I'll ever find all of my parts. But for the most part, we all have dominant parts that you're probably pretty familiar with and you recognize because in this situation, this part tends to show up, right? Every time I go into the dating scene, I keep attracting the same type of person, right? You hear this often for people in the dating scene. And so then the question would be, what part of me am I bringing on those dates? Am I bringing a self sabotaging part or am I bringing an over functioning part? Am I bringing a controlling part that's attracting in the same type of partner. So you probably, and as you're listening along, you might be thinking, oh, yeah, I know that part. I know that part. And they don't feel like true self because in some way you're not in that flow. They feel functional. They feel like they have some type of agenda. Not all parts are detrimental either. Some of them can be like really supportive and really loving and caring. They're what we call self-like parts. They look a lot like self, but they have a little tweak, a little agenda. So I have the therapist part that I bring to work with me. And it looks a lot like true self. It's really caring, it's really compassionate, it's very curious, right? I connect with people from that part, but it has a specific agenda of, okay, I'm the professional in the room. I want to help these people. This is my job. I want them to walk out of here feeling good. So that part is functioning in that capacity for a specific agenda for a specific reason. Whereas when I am in true self, maybe with my family, with my best friends, sometimes I am in true self with my clients. I'm more in a whole place of whatever happens, happens. I'm here for it. I'm present. I'm grounded. I'm regulated. I feel connected. I don't have any specific agenda. And it's really impossible to live in true self all the time. That's not the goal here with IFS. The goal is to know what true self feels like so that you can return to it as a home base. It's really normal to fractal off into your parts throughout a day. You might go in and out of 10 different parts, 20 different parts. But the idea is for you to notice and be like, whoop, there I go into my therapist role with the agenda, come back to true self and just connect with this person from a heart centered place. And when we have that awareness, we can more easily return. Or you can have it even before. Oftentimes, when you're in that situation, this part will show up. So before you put yourself in that situation, you can really access true self and try to be grounded there so that you're ahead of that part and it doesn't flood you like on an automatic basis.
So this is going to be an off the wall question, but when you were talking about, well, we have all these different parts, and some come to the forefront, some kind of hang back, and one will take precedence. I started thinking about the old movie Sybil with
Mm.
Sally Field years ago, multiple personality disorder. And then there was another one I think M. Night Shyamalan did not long ago about different personalities. I can't think of it. So multiple personality disorder. Would that, and I know it's super rare, but it does happen. Is this where someone has had such trauma that these different parts of them actually become like they will take over and be so dominant, one coming up after the other? Where for the most of us, it's like they can flow in and flow out, and it just creates this persona of where we are today, but yet we're all still in control of what's happening. But the multiple personality is that kind of a piece of some of this where it's really gone haywire with somebody.
So this is a different level because when you're talking about high acuity mental health and mental illness related to diagnoses like schizophrenia or dissociative identity disorder, which is kind of the new name now for multiple personality disorder, it's just a different ballpark altogether. This work isn't pathological like that, but oftentimes when I introduce it to a new person and I'm like, you have all these parts and they're like little selves, they're like, wait, do you think I have multiple personalities?
That's why I was asking, because I knew there would be other people out there saying,
Yeah.
wait, I saw this movie.
Yeah, so it's a good question, and what I always tell these people is, "No, I don't think you have multiple personalities in a clinical sense. I think we all are incredibly dynamic and complex, and we have these different aspects of ourselves, and it doesn't mean you're sick, it means you're normal. We all have this." In a psychiatric hospital, are you going to see different parts showing up in a dissociative identity kind of patient or a schizophrenic patient? Yeah. And they're going to be all consuming and flooding and disconnected from self and all other parts because they've reached this high acuity place of mental illness. So I think that puts those specific cases in a different bracket. So for the general population, this is not a pathology. This is normal, natural. You are just complex. You're not a flat person with one personality type. You're dynamic and you've had experiences and they've shaped you. And we're adaptive creatures, which mean as we face different experiences in life, we adapt to meet those experiences. They shape us. We are constantly looking to stay safe and protected. That's the experience of our nervous system. And so we adapt as we move through life, and these parts are adaptive with the current of life.
And that just reminds me so much of DNA. A variant is a variant off of the normal in a genetic in a specific gene that was for survival mode, basically. And so again, like it's just a really very similar type of thing if you weave them together. How
Yes.
how would something like this does this affect genetics, epigenetics, expression?
I imagine so. I haven't seen papers on that, but how could it not?
That's what I was thinking.
You're spending a lot of time in a manager part that is constantly pumping your anxiety response to things. Yeah, it's going to affect your genetic expression. And if you can start to gain more awareness about it and not let that part flood you, and instead take a more self based perspective in those situations, it's going to turn down those bad epigenetic expressions and turn on something that's more grounded, more centered, more focused on presence and love and connection. So, yeah, I think the more we allow these parts to flood us, the more our genetic expression is out of our control and our awareness, and the more work we do to get to know these parts and unburden them and integrate them in our systems in a healthy way, the more we take control over our epigenetic expression because we're living in congruence with that true self essence. It's like the visual of a school bus that's just full of kids, and every kid is a part, right? There's like the class clown humorous one that's
The
jumping.
bully.
There's the bully, there's, like, the perfectionist one who's neat and tidy, right? There's, like, the clan that stick together and kind of spitballs. These are all your parts, and what you want is for you, the adult, the present, the true self, to be driving this bus and have awareness of all these parts and maybe even use their support sometimes. Like, if there's a part that is super geeky and knows about, like, maps and the directions of everything, you can be like, "Hey, is the bus going the right direction?" And that part's, "Yep, make a left on Route 95," or whatever. Use your parts, but don't let them drive. Because as soon as you have one of those kids in the driver's seat, then the bus starts to drive off the road. You start to go haywire. And it's not for any bad intentions. That kid has all the intentions to drive the bus. They're just a kid and they're not supposed to be driving the bus. They're supposed to be in the back, having fun, being playful, sharing whatever wisdom they have that's at their developmentally appropriate level. And you're supposed to be driving the bus. And so that's the interface here, is constantly just taking those parts out of the driver's seat and sitting there yourself.
Not the wheels coming off the bus.
Right.
One at a time, and then you're careening out of control.
Yeah, yeah, and it can take a lot of time to recalibrate when a part has been flooding your system. And sometimes parts can group together because they work really well together to achieve the same goal. So maybe like the perfectionist part and the people pleasing part are both showing up in your relationships and they're both trying to help you achieve safety. And so you might notice little clusters of parts that work together. And that awareness is helpful too, because then you understand, like, this is a really adaptive response. Thank you. Thank you for trying so hard to protect me and keep me safe. I really appreciate that. And I see you. Can I drive the bus now? Can I give this a try? You can watch, you can hang out with me, but I think if I drive the bus, maybe we'd have a better chance of staying on the road. What do you think? And so you can
Sure.
treat your parts like this, like they're little humans, and you honor them and respect them and treat them with dignity, but also reclaim that position that you are the adult in the room and you're the one who can drive this bus.
So, what would you say as far as when to seek, like, when would you recognize to seek some help in this area? And what steps would you take to go there?
I think anyone who's interested in this, you can just dabble. Maybe you start out with one of Richard Schwartz's books. My book, The Radiant Life Project, has a whole section and chapter about parts work. You can check out my video archives. I have a whole IFS playlist. There's a ton out there on IFS. Just make sure you're getting this from a credible place, because there's also people who haven't really been trained and they're putting this out into the world a little bit incorrectly. So I think you can explore it, first of all, and just there's no harm in starting to think about which parts might be dominant. If you do decide to find a therapist who works through IFS, great, that'll take you on a deep dive. But I think if you want to, you might notice that some of the most detrimental patterns in your life, in your health, in your relationship are related to specific parts of you. And if you're aware of those parts, then you step out of a passive role in your own inner work and your trauma healing and your investigative journey and your health journey. And then you start to say, I think I know what might be causing this and I'm ready to work on it. And so you take that as your intention of, I'm really aware that I have a manager part that blocks me from authentic connection. And I want to work with that part. I want to understand why it's here and I want to unburden it so that I can free myself from the looping pattern of that kind of avoidance of something that I really want in my life. So I say explore it on any level that you're comfortable with. And if you really do want to take a deep dive, I think a therapist is a good place to start for that.
Yeah, and I also think it comes down to being able to sit with yourself
Hmm.
in the quiet, hear your thoughts, be with you. So many people are so afraid to do that. They say it's so uncomfortable, but you'll never get to a point of really knowing yourself, what is healthy, what's not, if you don't take that time to sit and hear your own thoughts. And if you're afraid of your own thoughts, then you really do need to reach out to somebody that can help, because if you're afraid of what you might think on your own, that's a problem. That's an awareness right there. Or
Yeah.
if you can't sit with yourself and you need to reach for alcohol or for another substance, whether it's, I don't care if it's weed or any other type of drug, but anything that takes you out of your consciousness. And that's what
Scrolling,
those things do.
shopping. Yeah, any kind of addiction. Yeah, I think
Sugar,
if there's anything that's interfering with the life that you want to live, anything that's inhibiting the highest level of functioning for you to be in your radiant life and for you to really be thriving, then yeah, it's worth looking at. Absolutely. And if you can't be by yourself, if you can't sit with your own thoughts, that's because there's a very powerful part that's not allowing you to feel something that
yeah,
feels some level intolerable to your system. And absolutely, that's worth exploring, because once you can start to sit with your discomfort and get comfortable with the uncomfortable, get curious about it,
that's gold.
that's where healing happens.
That's the gold. Yes. And sometimes it may take tuning out from others or some other activities. Take that time, sit and listen to what your body, your mind, your soul is asking for. Take that time to do that, because that's super valuable.
Yeah.
Super valuable.
Yeah. And I took this into an art therapy perspective in my private practice. I've created a blend of IFS and art therapy that I call parts cards. I have a couple videos about it on my YouTube channel, but maybe I'll send the link to put in the show notes for that playlist. But it's a creative experience where you can explore your parts through art therapy. And it's both through collage, and it doesn't have to be collage, but I find that's a really helpful method, and also creative writing. So you're using two different aspects of creativity to explore how dynamic and deep and interesting and intricate these parts can really be. And you create it in a tangible way. The way that I like to do it is on these circular cards, because I create a stack of them and they're all the same shape and size. But then you can lay them out on your tabletop, almost like family constellations therapy, where you can say, okay, so we've got these four different parts at play. Can they talk to each other? Do they know about each other? Are they working together? And you can move them around in a physical way that helps engage different aspects of your brain, so that you're not just thinking about the parts cerebrocognitively, but you're integrating it emotionally, physically, psychologically. You're creating this really embodied experience where your visual input is happening with the art aspect, your creative mind is working and thriving, and that provides so much information about the parts and how they're working together. Just adds pieces to the puzzle. It's a really fun experience to create a piece of artwork and add more vibrancy and dimensionality to the parts. Let it be fun, let it be playful, and please just remember as you're exploring your parts that there are no bad parts. That's actually one of the titles of one of Richard Schwartz's books, No Bad Parts. Every single part of you is working as hard as they can for your benefit, doing whatever they know how to do to keep you healthy and safe. So as you're navigating and exploring these parts, just try to approach them with curiosity and, if you can, with love, and they will tell you a lot about themselves that you may not have known. And it'll really help you to come back to that place of true self and to unburden them from what they may be carrying and the role they may be fulfilling in your system that maybe you outgrew and you don't even need anymore.
Yeah, I love that because I know we sit and say, God, I hate that part of me. I hate that side of me. But you're just telling yourself, like, I don't like me. And the body hears this.
Yeah.
And so then you're going to have potentially another part coming out to defend that. Like, it just can create this juggernaut. So, really, I think be careful how you speak to yourself. I always say that. Would you speak to yourself? Imagine saying to your best friend the things that you say to yourself. You probably wouldn't have that best friend anymore. Now, some of us activators would because it's how we talk, right? If we get it. But really, the horrible things that have almost brought me to tears that I've heard clients say about themselves. It's really heartbreaking. And some, like you said, those parts can be there as protection. But the more we don't understand, the more we'll dislike. We tend to dislike things that we don't understand. So the more you know you, the more you get in your flow and the more awareness you allow yourself to create around you. I think that's what will help you delve more into this in a healthier way than a shaming or a bashing way. I
Yeah.
think it's
And I actually have one more experiential that I can offer for people who want to explore this a little at home. If you want to explore this through writing, grab two different colored pens. One of them represents you, true self, and one of them represents the part that you want to work with. And go to your journal or a piece of paper. You could do this on your computer too. And so you just start to dialogue with your part. So maybe you start the conversation. You say, "Hey there, anxious part. I'm really curious about you today. I want to learn more about you. Would you be willing to talk?" And then you switch colors and you write back as the part, and you do not overthink this because if you overthink it, you get a little analytical in your head and this doesn't work. So this is really like an intuitive process where you just take that color of the anxious part, and the anxious part can respond to your question. It can say, "Hey, finally, you're giving me attention? Gosh, I've been waiting forever for you to ask me. Yeah, I'm here and I'm angry and I want you to know why." And then you can respond and say, "Oh, okay. I didn't know. Like, thank you. Thanks for being willing to talk to me. Tell me why you're angry." And then you can go on for pages like this and you can learn so much about your parts just in this written dialogue process. So give that one a shot if you want. And also, feel free to contact me or comment on the podcast. I'm happy to support you through understanding how to do this work. And if you have questions or if you're interested in the parts cards and you want to take it into a creative place, just ask me. I'm accessible. I'm very responsive and happy to support this because it's the most profound method I've ever used, both for my personal work and also for my work with clients. I just love it so much.
yeah, love that. I definitely have learned a lot today. So thank you for enlightening me instead of just throwing this IFS out there. I'm like, I have no idea what she's talking about. So I feel
Yeah,
I
good.
feel much better, and it's definitely created some awareness around some things in my life and some people that I know as well. So thank you for telling us all this fantastic information as always, my friend. And like we said, we'll make sure that we have all the information, that extra information she wants in the show notes. So check it out. And of course, you can reach out to either of us at any time. We're both super accessible. We love your input. Thank you for the comments and the feedback that everybody's been giving on our podcast and suggestions. We've been having people email with suggestions of topics they'd like to see, people they'd like to hear about. And please do that with us. We're here because we want to provide you with the best info.
And we have a question that we ask at the end of every
Oh,
episode. So I want to make sure we don't forget to ask it so that we can bring it back to how we are living our radiant lives through epigenetics. You want to both answer the question, Susan?
yeah, I'll ask you first. Hey, what are you doing today? Because we talk all the time. So, what are you doing today to live your most radiant life through epigenetics?
It really is a day-to-day thing, isn't it? Every day, I think I do something different to support my radiant life through epigenetics. Today, I'm approaching a knee surgery tomorrow, and so I'm really focusing on being kind to my body. I know I'm gonna have to go a long time without food and water tomorrow, so I'm really hydrating
Oh,
today, really nourishing. My surgery is not until 2:45 in the
oh
afternoon.
my God, that's
Yeah,
tough.
so I've got a long haul, and so I'm really focusing on hydrating, nourishing, trying to get rest, trying to get sleep, and giving my body a head start and just being able to heal from what will be the first of 2 surgeries of in the coming months that I'm sure you'll hear about on the podcast. So that's what I'm doing today. How about you, Susan? How are you
Well,
cultivating?
I also think for you, calming the brain
Yes.
because
Yeah.
surgery is always intimidating, anxiety causing, fear, right? We had the fear podcast, concentrate on all
Right.
that's getting fixed with that knee.
Yeah, and really trusting in the surgeon I chose and believing that I can trust myself in my decisions, really standing by the life that
Yeah.
I'm creating. Yes, good reminder.
Yeah. And we know that you have been working with your foods, you're working with lifestyle changes, the right supplements. All of these things are going to help you so much with the physical part of the recovery
Yeah, I
as
hope
well.
so. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
How are you cultivating your radiant life through epigenetics today?
No, we discussed it before we came on air where my my metrics are telling me I need a rest day. This is my time of year. And living in Colorado, the trails get so packed on the weekends. And I really don't want to be there before 5 a.m. to get a hike in. I like to get a good night's sleep. I'll get there early, but like getting up at 3 a.m. to go, that's just not enticing to me. So I planned to take tomorrow because it's like the last day of the week that looks really fantastic. But I've been doing so much and I've gotten back into CrossFit. So I'm doing sprint CrossFit workouts like 2 to 3 days a week to train along with some strength training and then these long, arduous hikes that I'm doing with high elevation that taxes me. And so today I am trying to listen to my body and work with the metrics, which are saying I really need to rest. So instead of doing a gym workout, which I really wanted to do, I think I'm just going to go take a nice 3 mile stroll, not my usual get out there, power it up, and an actual stroll because that actually helps my body recover. So really just listening and understanding what my body needs. That's what I'm doing today.
Beautiful. Leading
So
by example. Love it.
yeah, decide if I should go tomorrow or not because I really want to. But it's saying that I really need like 2 to 3 days for my body to totally recover from all I've put it through in the past few weeks. That's so hard when you are an activator. We want to move. We feel good. I have great energy. We want to go crush it. You have to dial things back with the knee surgery. You're going to be going nuts there. This is who we are. We are created to move and to have fun and to do these things that bring us that this movement and fun actually bring us a sense of peace. And so to say I actually need a day to really do nothing is hard, but we need to work hard, play hard, rest hard.
Mhm.
And I think you and I are both getting a dose of for different reasons that okay, now we need to rest a little bit hard. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I think it's interesting. Again, the more you know, we're gonna affect these genetics. So yeah. But just super valuable information today. Once again, get out there, everybody. Have a fantastic day. Be your most authentic self. And please, please, please share our podcast, comment, subscribe on YouTube so that we can continue to bring you the best info out there that you're looking for. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, everybody. Be kind to your parts. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for tuning into our podcast.
If you enjoyed this week's episode, we'd love for you to share it, leave a review or comment, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Help us get this information out to everyone who could benefit, and we'll keep bringing you the content you crave.
You can also check out our podcast site at everydayepigenetics.co and sign up for our newsletter to stay updated on upcoming episodes. The link is in the show notes.
If you're interested in DNA or epigenetic coaching with Susan, or Radiant Life Coaching for deep inner work with Kate, our contact info is in the show notes below.
Now go and make it a great day and let your most authentic self shine.